I would like to invite Anat Guetta, and I see Amnon already catch Anat. Amnon, please release her. We need her on the stage. Thank you, Amnon. Anat Guetta, of course, is the chair Israeli Security Exchange. And last but not least, Lavy Shtokhamer, if I spell the name correctly. Shtokhamer. Blockchain expert from the Israel National Cyber Directorate. So we will start first at this panel. I would like each one of you give few words about yourself, because each individual person on the stage is really a character with so many good things. So 2 minutes, not more, okay? Each one of you describe yourself. So take the microphone one by one. Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Helen Dixon. I'm the head of the Irish Data Protection Authority. It's a national supervisory authority under a law I know you've all heard a lot about, the General Data Protection Regulation. It means that my office is responsible for supervising all sorts of sectors, every sector, in terms of its collection and processing of personal information. In particular, the Irish Data Protection Authority is the lead supervisory authority in the EU for all of the world's major technology platforms and big technology companies. So companies like Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Dropbox, Airbnb, Twitter, they all have operations based in Ireland that we're responsible for supervising for, in respect of. So this is my first visit to Cyber Week, my first visit to Israel, and I'm absolutely delighted at all the learning I've had an opportunity to do over the last couple of days. So looking forward to the panel.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohit Chopra. I'm a commissioner at the US Federal Trade Commission. The FTC is one of the major regulatory agencies that enforces consumer privacy laws, consumer protection laws, as well as competition law. We have a major footprint in technology, financial services, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, oil and gas, and a number of industries. This is also, prior to being FTC commissioner, I was a consumer banking regulator, so much of my exposure to blockchain issues has been with respect to financial services. Prior to my government career, I worked in financial services and consulting, and including advising several fintech firms.
Anat?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Anat Guetta. I'm the chair of the Israeli Securities Authority. The ISA, in short, the ISA is responsible for the investors' protection in the Israeli capital market toward all market players which are listed companies in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, all funds, mutual funds, ETFs, all the financial advisors in our capital market, etc. And this is my first time in the Cyber Week, and mainly in the cyber context, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So good evening. I'm Lavy Shtokhamer. I'm the head of the Israeli National CERT, executive director within the INCD, and I'm here within the Blockchain Summit because of my background in finance, and that eventually our CERT is cover also the financial CERT, which is an MSSP ISAC for all the financial institutes in Israel, working with financial institutes across the world. And recently, because of few interests, also cover few ICO and cryptocurrency in Israeli companies.
So first of all, welcome to Israel and Tel Aviv. I hope you enjoy it. This is marvelous weather. This hot weather we invite specifically for you. And the first time in Cyber Week is always good to start This is one of the biggest worldwide conference, not only on cyber. We have multiple vectors here addressing the most advanced technologies. Of course, blockchain is one of them. And I think that the panelists here that you are seeing is so variety, and we would like to start with something which is very relevant to understanding the connection between blockchain and regulators. And all of us heard so many about GDPR. But one second, how GDPR and blockchain live together? Because one of the fundamental things in GDPR is the possibility to be forgotten. How can someone delete my records from a blockchain where, by definition, what we heard all today, that it's immutable, everything is there forever? How GDPR and blockchain go together from your perspective?
Thanks. Maybe I'll kick off. So in the great first panel that you moderated earlier, we heard lots of interesting use cases and
Yes.
it's competing. As we heard, the vast majority of those use cases, or a large amount of them, involve personal data relating to individuals. And so automatically then, certainly in an EU context, data protection law, and specifically the General Data Protection Regulation, is engaged. As all of you know, it's a very high-level, technology-neutral, principles-based law. So the great news is, of course, that there's no automatic prohibition or presumption that blockchain and the GDPR cannot work together. But it does certainly, not just in relation to the example, Jakob, that you gave about the immutability versus the right to rectification and erasure, it does certainly pose some conceptual challenges in terms of how the GDPR and blockchain can coexist. So probably the first one is that data protection law is generally built on a concept of centralized control, and we have the concepts of controllers who make the decisions about purposes and means of personal data processing, and then we've concepts of processors that act on instructions. So one of the first challenges is to identify in a blockchain scenario who are the controllers, potentially the joint controllers, who are the processors, and what is the function of the participants, and so on. So there's a whole list of things I can run you through in relation to how the GDPR is engaged and what some of the challenges are, but maybe you want to swing back around to me if you want to keep it moving.
Yeah, I'm actually happy to add with respect to broader issues of data protection law. And I hope everyone who has a startup or a new business thinks hard about this. You know, the regulators, we are always trying to make the best of what our legal framework is to promote innovation and competition, but we also have a responsibility to enforce the laws we have. And so when we approach new technologies, obviously we look at where the benefits can come from, and there are always many. You know, blockchain often gives the promise of greater data integrity, in many cases more security, but I think we always have to kick the tires on some of the claimed benefits as well. So I'll give you a specific example where in certain use cases of blockchain, we do hear about the benefits of anonymization or de-identification, but then of course we look to empirical literature or research studies that show sometimes re-identification can occur. And we have to wrestle with these tensions in administering these issues through our own legal frameworks. Now, in the last panel you talked about the US, where there's a different set of agencies, one overseeing securities and another with derivatives and another the tax authority. One of the things that all government agencies have to challenge ourselves to do is that when there are new paradigms to deliver data or transactions, whether it's financial services or other sectors of the economy, we do have to push ourselves to be able to quickly identify where the concerns might be so that we can communicate to the marketplace effectively on how to address them. So the responsibility is obviously two-way, and with respect to blockchain, there are some promises, and we have to figure out how our existing legal frameworks can support the benefits, but also minimize the risks to consumers. And there's no question that with respect to some of the applications of blockchain, there are some real risks that we see to potential collusion and anti-competitive practices, to obviously financial protections to consumers, and of course data protection. So we are all challenging ourselves to think about those.
Nothing to say on GDPR.
Okay.
Yes,
Anat?
me as well. We are not
Okay.
responsible for local GDPR, but we're subject to the local authority of GDPR, so...
Okay, no problem at all. Now we will ask you about what is your opinion as regulators related to the latest things happening around ICOs, STOs. From your eyes, is this going to be going forward? The regulator will enter this market, influence it, change it? Do you see that the STO is really going to catch after we are seeing the down on the ICO?
I can start by putting a number that I just found the other day. We're talking about approximately 15% of all the ICO funding got stolen. How many people here knew about this percentage? It's 15%. It's crazy. Okay, it's crazy. No one speak about it because, among other things, lack of regulation upon those companies. What we're seeing is basically the differentiation between those companies and other legacy companies are basically three things. First is lack of regulation in cybersecurity, not general regulation. Regulation in cybersecurity upon this company. The second is as different from legacy company, banking company that has also already the culture of cybersecurity framework. Hundreds of people specialized in that area, and those company doesn't recruit as much as people, doesn't invest in those people, trying to find a silver bullet, quick wins nowadays. And the third part is basically that we have to invest a lot more on the client side. The client side has the wallets. The wallet got breached a lot, so it's an additional thing to recognize when we speak of what of the landscape of threats within ICOs.
Okay. I would like to refer to the securities point of view. And I think that regarding this question about ICOs, STO, and digitalization of other physical assets like shares, bonds, real estate, etc., I think that we should distinguish between the products which are the STOs, ICOs, etc., to the platform technology which is usually blockchain. And the wave of the ICO is absolutely behind us. In 2017 and 2018, there was a big wave of ICOs, and there was a feeling in the market that the ICO was meant to avoid securities law, which was a kind of problem, and absolutely most of the investments were vanished, and a lot of investors were hurt. And I think that today the rise of the STO, which is securities token offering, is a new event, and it represents the process of a maturing market, a much more matured market that comes to us, the regulator, and say, we are a security. You don't have any more to discuss about that. And during the last 2 years, there were a lot of discussions of regulators in Israel and outside of Israel regarding the question whether an issued token is a security or not. And I think that in the end of the day, the admission of the industry that an STO is an applicable solution represent a high grade of maturity. We do invite entrepreneurs from the industry to come to us and to examine an STO process together. And we understand that the current regulatory framework is too tough for entrepreneurs, and that a new thought should be made about what should be the regulatory framework that fit the needs of the STO industry. I'm definitely aware, and I would like to say it very clear, that there were feelings and emotions and expectations from the industry towards us as a regulator and other regulators in Israel, that we are not enough quick or enough active for the needs of this industry. But we made a very deep process, and we came to the conclusion that technology cannot change at the end of the day the legal or the economical essence of the security. And coming to that, we are still in the process, and we're going to continue it. And I would like to say that we invite you to come and to approach us directly in order to work directly on it, because our clear aim is, in the end of the day, to enable high-level standards of technology to our capital market, and this is something that is very important to us. Please.
I would like to address a question to you, Rohit, related to the latest FTC holding a lot of very interesting hearing in US, which I'm sure the audience here would love to hear your opinion about that and give us some latest update, what is allowed to say. If you are allowed to say more, it's better. But we are really anxious to hear about what is happening now there, latest news.
Sure. So to give background, the Federal Trade Commission has been hosting a series of hearings that there's been international participants from all over the world, and we are still working through the process of developing policy outputs from that hearing process. But I think for this crowd, one of the things that I think we should all be paying attention to anytime you're using a new technology is how technology platforms, whether the structure of today's market may pose some risks to nascent competitors. So there are many inputs that we received talked about how large technology platforms may be purchasing many small competitors for the purpose of maintaining dominance. And that raises questions about the future of competition and whether new firms are going to be able to form. There's also questions about whether large technology platforms, including dominant ones, prescribe certain types of standards. And those standards, which must be adopted by everyone, could that platform use that standard potentially to exclude potential rivals or raise costs for their rivals? So our goal is to think about ways that we can apply our consumer law, apply our competition law in ways that create more energy in the high-tech sector, rather than what many people are concerned about is heavy concentration and dominance in our technology sector actually reducing innovation and reducing the ability for someone with a great idea to challenge incumbents. So this might take the form of law enforcement, it might take the form of rules, it might take the form of other policy statements that we hope will not only have an impact in the US, but across the developed world and beyond.
Okay, thank you. As talking about cryptocurrencies and from the eyes of your perspective as regulators representing regulators in your countries. We are still seeing that Bitcoin and Ethereum, Ethers, are outside the regular framework. From your perspective, where is the future from regulator addressing Bitcoin and Ether should go in the next future? Is going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies going to be a risk to the economy or something that need to be more controlled? How do you see them in the next coming years?
Well, I am not the securities or banking regulator, but I will share that I think there is obviously concerns, or at least a need to study about if there are currencies operating outside of traditional monetary authorities, the extent to which that they might pose any systemic risks. So systemic risk can take multiple forms, and obviously in the United States and around the world, the systemic risk in our banking sector hit consumers and families in our economy very, very hard. And that was, not so long ago. So the extent to which there are multiple currencies, perhaps on one side that poses less risk, but perhaps greater convergence around may pose other forms of risk. And I think this is something that, central banking governors are going to have to wrestle with because they want to be able to safeguard their economy from risks that they might not have anticipated.
Well, I think that regarding the Bitcoin, there were a lot of discussions regarding the question, what is a Bitcoin, whether it is a security or currency or investment. I think that in the end of the day, after all this discussion, Bitcoin has left out of any regulatory framework. But I think that if we will ask people why do they buy Bitcoin, the main answer would be for investment, because there are a lot of limitations to use it as a deposit. There are not many stores that accept Bitcoin as a mean of payment for products or services. And there are also limitations in trading and transactions. So if, in the end of the day, Bitcoin is used as an investment, I think that the question whether it is a security or not is not important at all. And regarding the systemic risk, I think that regulators in Israel and outside of Israel must be aware for this new category that is being created of a product that is not a currency, is not a security, but behave like an investment. And I think that it could become a kind of systemic risk, especially by the revelation of Facebook, Libra, cryptocurrency to the worldwide market. We must put exact definitions for this phenomena.
Thank you. Now we will ask questions from the audience. And, I will go down for that, okay? I will leave you alone on the stage. I'm sure you will be managing this. First ladies here.
I think people have a hard time reconciling this immutability factor with the fact that you can get ripped off and no one knows what happened, right? I think, there's a reconciliation there. So I do know firms that are like blockchain detectives. And so if an exchange is getting hacked, they can actually tell which wallet and warn the exchange. Like this is happening virtually in real time. Is there a regulatory role in this?
Okay, panelists.
As far as I know, it's still a tool also that only law enforcement using it until now, because there's basically a whole bunch of startups that are focusing on that area, specific on that area, and selling mostly for law enforcement. I think that the regulator should start looking at that direction. I'm gonna to connect it to the previous question. If you won't embrace all the other cryptocurrency like blockchain and Monroe, it would still be on the area of criminals, still be on a free zone where everything happened and no one's here know what happened over there, and it's going to increase a free market of all kind of cryptocurrency. I can just mention for the other day, from the announcement of LibraCoin, we saw a major increase on crypto mining across the world. If for those of you who doesn't know what crypto mining is, basically malware that's spread across the world in order to mining new cryptocurrency, abuse actually the computing power of many organizations across the world. And in our perspective, the analogy for that, thinking of a lot of people trying to find out where are the open doors and open window across the world. And recently, also the major attacks, the additional major attack, major ransomware attack across the world, using that kind of trying to look and find those doors in order to implement a major ransomware attack, especially in Canada and the US.
Okay, next question here.
Hi. As government representatives, or as close as we can get, why don't governments all over the world just eliminate cash and make everything digital currencies, and then in one day you eliminate all crimes, money laundering, corruption, everything? You just have to say, a month from today, there's not going to be any more cash, put your cash in the bank, and that's it. Why don't you just do that?
Okay, this was Helen.
Yeah, just very briefly in response to the last question, I think, of course, there are data protection issues there if it's easy for a blockchain detective to identify the wallet implicated and so on. But in relation to the question about why doesn't the world go totally crypto and eliminate all fraud through all the benefits that it would offer, I think, first of all of the data protection and data privacy issues would have to be worked through and resolved, because some issues would potentially get worse if we quickly moved to that type of scenario where we're not sure that the security is going to be adequate, the data governance models are completely worked out, that the issues of smart contracts and how they can implicate and affect personal data rights of individuals are all worked through. So I think the maturity in the market and the engagement with all of the laws that operators in the field would be subject to still has some road to travel.
Just so I understand your question, are you saying why don't we all shift to a global digital currency, or every country just get rid of cash? Got it. Got it, yeah. Yeah, so we are actually, in the United States, there's been some movement actually in the other direction. So some cities are considering ordinances and laws that require certain types of retail establishments to accept cash. And the reason for this is that there are serious distributional issues in access to the banking system. So even in the United States, there are many people who are unable to get an affordable bank account because they face very steep fees in the traditional banking system. So I think for many, there's just a distributional and social equity question about if you were to ban cash, what would the ramifications be for particularly vulnerable consumers? Now, there's also been other policy proposals about, for example, getting rid of the $100 bill. $100 bills may actually meet many of the policy goals that you're offering without necessarily harming others. I've not thought about that, but there certainly would be distributional issues that I think every consumer authority and advocate would be concerned about.
Okay. Hi, I want to refer to Anat Guetta. I issued 6 billion bonds in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. Global Finance, if you remember the name. It was securitization. 50% of the final return was dedicated to costs, so the investors got 50% less than what they could get from the back assets. That's how it works in the old economy. I can tell you that 98% of the investors were institutionals and high-net individuals, because I made some physical delivery of assets. At the end, I saw 1% was Mrs. Cohen from Hadera, 1%. I tried with your former people in your role, I tried to move to the institutional arena, what called Retzef Mossadim in the stock exchange. The stock exchange blocked it because, the expenses are much cheaper there. So they want us to go to the arena, but basically 99% was investors, high-net individuals, and most of them were institutions. That's something that can't go further because now we have the blockchain. We can go to the investors, to the sophisticated investors. We can give them much more effective tool. The bond, the asset-backed security will be much more effective. Basically, the individuals are not buying the bonds. All the advisors, the pension fund, everybody else buys it, and they are sophisticated. That's one thing. A second. I finish and that's it. And I was represented one of the leading banks in Israel. They have now, I visited...
the leading what?
One of the leading banks, the global leading banks in the world. In the blockchain week, I visit the offices in New York. 150 people working, develop blockchain for the bank. So they know that somebody is moving the cheese somewhere. The milking cow is moving away. And the last thing, I also represented 5 leading funds, global funds. I asked them, why you're not adopting blockchain? Because we can create liquidity for LPs. And it's, they are stuck with you 10 years and sometimes more than that. They said, why to bother? Because the public is silent. When we attach the client, he doesn't know that his potential possibility to trade, to have a liquidity, we are fine with it until they will frap on our door, then we'll consider it. So I think the market is changing. That's why I moved from securitization in the conventional way to the blockchain. And I believe that, before Neubach was sitting here, he blocked the initiative to make it more efficient. But you have to know that the economy moving our way.
Okay, so thank you. I totally agree with you. We do understand that the market is changed, and we do think that blockchain is an exciting technology, and the ISA itself is implementing blockchain in its IT systems in 3 big waves that started last year and will continue in the current years. And I think that we have here Amnon, which is the chair of the Israeli Stock Exchange. So I can speak for on his behalf and to tell that we definitely going to put a lot of attention and activity inside the Retzef. I don't know what is the English word for Retzef, but it's a parallel trading platform in the stock exchange, which meant to be used especially by private bonds, which are very minor those days. And I think that the rhythm in which the market is changing might be slow, but I think that we are in it, and we think that this is a positive trend for our market, and we are going to support it. So I think it's an optimistic answer for you.
Okay, so we came to the conclusion. First, I would like to say thank you very much to our panelists, marvelous, really amazing. Sit and I want to say, first of all, thank you to the ICRC, the Tel Aviv University, organizing this amazing Cyber Week, especially to Liana and Katerina here, helping us with this activity. And thinking all what we heard today about blockchain, cybersecurity, the combination of that together on the world of fintech, where is that going, the regulators, their perspective, and the real use case around the world with blockchain. I think that we have now more insight, more understanding about what is the direction. Hopefully it will help you also implementing this going forward. We also would like and hope that the academia around the world will teach more blockchain, not only just cryptography, more thinking about the use cases and teach the next generation of managers and engineers how to really implement blockchain efficiency in different implementation. And taking this forward, we really would like to see next year more use cases successfully. We will have in 1 year to see the different cryptocurrencies which has been announced, where they are going forward and if they were successful or not. And maybe other companies that we are hearing they are also going to initiate their own coins, if they will do this and if this will be successful. And then the debate between permission and permissionless, if this is going, which direction will be the stronger the year coming. So thank you very much. Enjoy the evening in Tel Aviv. Thank you.